Welcome to Systems Alliance. My name is Jexy, and in this video, we're going to go over Fallout 76's patch 11, which just has not gone over that well, mostly because it's brought in more problems than it's actually solved. So as many of you know, when Fallout 76 launched, it was a complete disaster. And why was it a disaster? Well, because the game wasn't finished. It was one of the, if not the most, out of any new release coming around our era, the buggiest game ever. It came in riding high based on promises that it was going to be the biggest, the best looking game, one of the most interesting games with the best world building, all stuff that Fallout the series has ever had, and yet what we got was not just the worst Fallout game ever. You could probably argue the worst Bethesda game ever, and one of the worst games in general ever, probably the worst game of 2018. In addition to that, there were so many controversies surrounding all the stuff that was supposed to go with it. The backpack controversy, everything that went along with that, the jacket controversy. Why are there so many controversies with a game with items that have nothing to do with the game? Well, I guess the reason for that is they can't make a game, they can't do the merchandising, but obviously they want to sell as much stuff as possible to you that has nothing to do with the game, because that's where they're going to make their profit. This game itself is pretty much an epic failure. It's just one of the worst games I've ever seen in my life. That all being said, there has been a little improvement since launch, since it even dipped lower than it was during launch. And I'm not going to say it's a good game, because it's certainly not, but it's better than the trash that it was. So, okay, things are going a little slowly, a little bit better. I think the fact that you haven't heard too much about Fallout 76 recently is a combination of, one, hardly anyone's playing it anymore, but two, there hasn't been a ton of controversies anymore. Well, obviously they are back in the news with their patch 11, and I have to say, if you have 11 patches this early in your game, that is a lot, but unfortunately, the game isn't fixed yet. So if you go out on the Fallout 76 Reddit, here's a list of everything that's just going wrong with the new patch. So the first issue in camp, the Atomic Shop greenhouse, is almost unusable and falsely advertised. It won't place properly, the foundations won't snap, can't be placed on foundations. On top of that, it's actually pretty expensive, so you do have to purchase this. And on top of that, it's advertised as a greenhouse that you cannot place crops inside. So that seems pretty pointless. Why would you have a greenhouse if plants can't grow inside it that you need for the game? And then they're saying just call it a dome, but I mean, people are going to pay for a dome? Why are people paying for anything in this game? The game was half price basically the day of launch because it was so bad. I can't believe they're still trying to get people's money for stuff that doesn't work. But that's not all. One of the other things that the new patch was supposed to improve was legendary drops, but apparently instead it's gotten worse somehow. Most people aren't receiving any legendary drops anymore, even if they fight a legendary boss, and the only exception to that is sometimes maybe only the party leader will receive it, as opposed to everyone. So I'm no coding expert, but if you're supposed to make something better and you make it worse, you might want to go back and revisit that. Now on to the NPCs. Apparently that's gotten worse too, because if you try and shoot them with high rate of fire weapons or very fast melee weapons, the damage doesn't register. And obviously this breaks the game, because that means your enemies immediately become immortal. So that's kind of difficult to fight, and probably is going to make you stuck at some point in the game. Now on to power armor. Sometimes after leaving the power armor, the player's head will not appear. It's really hard to look cool or feel like you're playing a game that isn't completely broken if your head is missing. So another issue is that if you're sprinting with your power armor and then you open the map or Pip-Boy, the action points will continue to drain, completely draining the cores, and this is an issue that has already been around and still is not fixed with the new patch 11. There are also reports of the character and game freezing upon attempting to enter their power armor, so obviously that is a problem as well. And then with every changing of the game mode, logging out, changing servers, their power armor pieces are unequipping themselves. And as it says right here, this is at best annoying and at worst deadly, because if you log in under hostile conditions, you'll be completely unarmored and then you'll die. And the biggest issue for the power armor is that it'll completely vanish after logging out. To just lose your power armor pieces like that, that's kind of a problem. Another issue is that changing your weapon via the Hot Wheel or Pip-Boy is now causing the game to freeze and lag. So what does that mean? Well, because the world is not affected by this, it's basically resulting in either loss of progress or death. Sometimes it could be just a little bit of lag, or sometimes you have to restart the entire game. Also, opening the social tab while renaming an object will lock you into the menus. Apparently this is happening quite often, and in addition to that, is happening to those most with large friends lists. So it doesn't seem like that would be ideal. The people who have a large friend list are being hurt, and those are going to be your more hardcore players. So when they said they wanted to have this patch make the game easier for newbies, I don't think what they wanted to do was actually just make it worse for people who are veterans of the game. Focusing in on an old problem, the audio glitch still hasn't been fixed. This is something that was claimed to have been fixed a couple patches back, but has not. And this is something that was happening since the beta, where sounds were coming from all over the place. There were audio loops. Things just weren't lining up, and it seems like this is still not fixed. As I mentioned before, the damage bug back in full force. NPCs take a small amount of damage and then shoot up to full health, once again causing you to run into an invincible enemy. Also, now you can run into areas that cause instant death in terms of going outside the White Springs pool. Also, sometimes you can't leave it unless you log out completely, and it's also at random apparently. Sometimes people can go in and they're fine, and sometimes you go in and you die immediately. And just in terms of the quality of life being in the game, it looks like a lot of time was spent on a major power armor update, but apparently not much changed. Everyone seems pretty underwhelmed with it, and just because you change a couple cosmetic things doesn't make it worth all of that time that was spent on it. Also, power armor remains the least powerful armor option once a legendary armor comes into play. So all of a sudden, your power armor is now useless. So that doesn't seem like something that's very good. Let's just think of a game. Let's go back to Mass Effect. Let's say Mass Effect 2. You could have your special armors that you paid for and got from somewhere else, and it's just one armor. But if you're piecing it together yourself, those could be just as good depending on the situation. With Fallout 76, it doesn't appear to be the case. Interestingly of note, one of the things it says here under the fix portion is for them to rebalance the power armor and involve the community, because there seems to be a fundamental disconnect between what the devs believe power armor gives the player and what it actually provides. When you're seeing all these problems, it seems like none of this has ever been tested before it's been released, which wouldn't be surprising to see this type of disconnect. Obviously, hardcore Bethesda and Fallout 76 fans are pleading with Bethesda to say, hey, we want this to improve, but you guys got to do something. Of course, because it was all over the news about how much of a disaster the patch 11 was for Fallout 76, Bethesda did speak on it, and it said, we are investigating reported issues after the rollout of patch 11 yesterday. A hotfix is planned to release later today to specifically address the issue of legendary drops and fake legendary creatures along with stability fixes. We will continue to monitor feedback and address any additional issues as quickly and efficiently as possible. Of course, the problem with that all is the game's been out for a really long time now, and it's still no good. So please tell me, how much faith am I supposed to have in a company that has never gotten it together, that this is going to be the time they get it together? One of the biggest issues the community has with Bethesda when it comes to Fallout 76 is that they simply aren't listening to the community feedback. That's why they're on patch 11 already, and it's still broke. As was said in that suggestion, there's a fundamental disconnect between what Bethesda believes they're giving Fallout 76 players and what players are actually receiving in-game. The fact that that gap is still there is pretty crazy when the game's been out this long, but it kind of also makes sense that there's that gap out there, because why wouldn't there be if the studio doesn't listen to feedback? And if you'll remember, when the game launched, Bethesda said they will have no microtransactions in this game that will affect gameplay. That's what Bethesda said. That's what Bethesda promised us. But they've already broken their promise, and it's about to get worse. So obviously it started with the repair kits, which of course affect gameplay. That is not cosmetic only. And now, in patch 11, the one thing that does work with patch 11 is them introducing scrap kits. So what are scrap kits? They basically allow the player to take items, put it in their inventory so they either don't get killed and lose a bunch of stuff, and so they don't have to keep going back to a place where they can drop it off in their inventory. What's crazy about this is that they're charging you for this. This is something you have to pay for. I just played Monster Hunter World. I just played Dragon Age or Mass Effect or literally any other game that I can think of. And this is not something that is charged for. This is something that you can either upgrade in game to have a bigger inventory hold while you're moving around, but usually places where you have to put stuff away, they're usually easy to find. They're somewhere close. You don't usually run into this issue that you even need to have this, but they've created a world in which not only do you need to have this, but they're going to charge you for it. And that just kind of shows the difference between a game like Capcom's Monster Hunter World and Fallout 76 with Bethesda. One of them wants to make you happy and keep coming back for more while giving you a whole bunch of free content, and in doing so, sells so many copies that it becomes the #1 selling game for Capcom of all time. Think about that. Capcom has a lot of famous properties, and this is the #1 Monster Hunter World of all time, and it's helped boost their stock tremendously. Meanwhile, you have Bethesda, who doesn't sell hardly any, is getting terrible reviews. No one trusts them anymore. It is definitely going to affect the sales of their next games, especially if they can't improve them hardly any more than Fallout 76 is. And they're choosing to take that core fan base who did stick around and try and squeeze every last dollar, dime, cent out of them, because that's just the kind of company that Bethesda is. Now, despite patch number 11 for Fallout 76 being a joke, to me, this is the biggest joke right here. When asked about the repair kits and the monetization of them and how that's a non-cosmetic microtransaction, Bethesda said they don't see it that way. We believe the repair kits were a convenience item for people who didn't want to grind for adhesive and other things, he said. And it was just a way for them to basically shortcut game systems, definitely not pay to win. I will argue with anybody that repair kits makes you win at the game. First of all, you're not really competing with one another except in PvP mode. We have all the information, how often people repair, what they repair, and again, you can repair in the game. It's simply just a strict convenience thing. That's my take on repair kits. So let's see, to win, you need time. So that makes sense. You need time to build up your items in the game, build up your character, get stronger, more powerful, and then of course, win, whether it's in PvP or anything else. So the key thing here is time. And they have made it an egregious amount of time to get these things. And now they've taken away much of that time that it took to do certain things like, say, repair kits. So let's see, if time equals winning and they're cutting down time if you pay, yeah, it sounds like it's pay to win for me. And even if it doesn't sound technically pay to win, it's at the very least pay for convenience. And pay to not have to grind. Why would they make the grind so much that people don't want to do it? And if they know the grind is that bad to where they're offering these kits that you can purchase, then they know they've set up a system where people are going to do it specifically for that. Does that help someone who just joins the game? I guess. But how many people are just joining Fallout 76 now? Hardly any. The vast majority of any game sales come right at the beginning. And especially when a game is this poorly reviewed and has such an angry community surrounding it and only bad news, there's hardly anyone who's going to be joining in that's a new player. They should have probably already cut their losses with this game, but instead of doing that, they're trying to monetize on the people that remain. And to me, that's wrong. And as I read today, that hotfix that was supposedly implemented has definitely not fixed most of these issues, whether they be issues that came with the patch, new issues, issues that were reintroduced with the patch, or issues that were never fixed to begin with and weren't fixed in this patch. They're mostly all still there. The only thing I can wonder now is who's actually still giving them a chance. And if you know someone, let me know down in the comment section below. Let me know your thoughts on Bethesda as a company. What do you think about them and about them basically going back on their word, saying it would be cosmetic only microtransactions? And now they're saying, well, maybe not so much. Maybe we just didn't mean pay to win. But we're tweaking the definition of pay to win to fit what we think we can get away with. What are your thoughts on Fallout 76? I don't think it can recover at this point, but what do you think about the franchise as a whole? Is this game going to kill the franchise? And will this game kill other franchises that Bethesda tries to release? And also, what are your thoughts on the fact that they simply cannot stay out of the news for doing something that they've screwed up. Whether it's the items that you could buy that were peripherals for the game, all of that marketing material, everything like that, whether it's the jacket, the bag, all the screw ups with the actual game. Let me know all your thoughts down in the comment section below. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, hit me up on Twitter, and we'll catch you next time.